of deaths. Some of the folks that have been lost in the Pima County Jail that will not be fixed by a new jail to the same sheriff's department. Yunin Muhammad Altib Tutu, Jose Flores, Caleb Kanowski, Jennifer Valenzuela, Joaloya, Joseph Zarate, Pedro Xavier Martinez Palacios, Sylvester Miguel Inzunza, Alex Romo, Jonathan James Leary, Wade William Welch, Terrence Salazar, Benjamin Wilhite, Hugh Gillespie Burford, Amin Sahid Muhammad Ali, Robert Salvunes, Jesus Aguilar Figueroa, Norberto Medican Beltran, Bradley Alex Lewis, Justin Crook, Jack Dixon, Weldon Ellis, Cruz Jr. Patino, Zachariah Farrington, Sandra Judson, Jacob Miranda, William Omegar. All of those people have died in the Pima County Jail in 2021, 2022, and 2023. And those are only the names that we have. We know that the sheriff's department has gone back and removed information from county coroner's reports to take away the fact that inmates were present at the jail prior to their death. We cannot give another jail to the same sheriff's department that continues to allow people to die on their watch. The origin of this commission came from a request for more money to address the deaths. We've been told that the deaths are outside of the scope. I can tell you that the facilities and the operations and the finance subcommittees all have the capacity to evaluate how these deaths occurred and how they could be fixed, how we could prevent further deaths.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, next speaker.
We have Christine Salazar.
I speak?
Christine?
Yes.
Yes, please start.
Hi, good morning. I understand that the sheriff, Christopher Nanos, is asking for a blue ribbon for a new jail. I recently had a walk through the jail, and there is a lot of change that we need. To start, I understand that there is a lot of people passing away in the jail. And I know that healthcare is the #1 priority that needs to be changed in the jail. When somebody comes into the facility, like correction officers, the change would be that the jail would need new x-ray machines for the correction officers, new canine dogs to check the correction officers. I think the jail needs new x-ray machines, new counselors, new emergency buzzers in the towers. Or if they're asking money for a new jail, why don't they just fix the jail or fix the correction officers, NAF care, mental health care training, new drug training. Yes, there is mold in the facility. Yes, the facility needs a facility better. The inmates need to be visualized and be able to have a facility where the correction officers can actually see an inmate having an emergency. We need new technology like cameras in the blind sides, which is where they're detoxing. I noticed that there's not a lot of like emergency officers in there or nurses. They need to know more training on how to notify themselves of who's detoxing, who's having a mental problem, or if the jail needs an actual new jail. I am also concerned of like the $330 million. And I believe that the Nanos is involved with, that he's asking for that money, that he went over budget. If they want a new jail, I believe they need to look into the correction officer training first. I know they need a new building. I understand. New buzzers, new elevators, no water running down them elevators like I saw, mold in the ground, all of that, all that could be repaired. Water, there's no water for the inmates. There's no plastic spoons, there's no plastic cups, there's no containers giving to them. There is a change that I noticed in the inmates that were changed out of their clothing into whites. That's for more safety. That's to notice if they carry anything that will not be able to go into the facility, which I like that change. Also, the new facility that's outside, the transition center, that is also very good, but we need change within the jail. If they need a new facility, what is it? What is it that they're asking for? Put it black and white. What is it that they need? What is Mr. Nanos asking for? If they can show us the community, what is it that he's asking for that money? Is it for new nurses, new COs? What is the money gonna be used for? What type of jail are we looking at? Are we looking at a technology updated jail? Like, can we see anything in black and white for us, the community, to feel comfortable enough to be able to, feel like we can give that money? It's
Okay,
hard
thank
for
you
the
very much.
family members.
I have a Marisol Herrera on.
Marisol?
Thank you. There are a number of serious logical flaws at the core of this commission's design and driving rationale. The most visible is the personal makeup of this group. Without the perspective of people actually incarcerated at the jail, it makes sense that your self-identified scope excludes the cruelty for all and fatality for some that comes with being incarcerated at the Pima County Jail. The deeper flaw, the root rot underlying the conclusions of the commission thus far, comes from Sheriff Nanos. In the request to fund an expanded jail, he made the erroneous assumption that more beds would solve his capacity issue. Now the discussion has revolved around how many beds, where, and how to pay for it. We never should have gotten to this point. Members of this commission have acknowledged the truth that we all know. There are several evidence-based means of solving and preventing jail overpopulation in the short term and in the long term, and building a bigger jail is decidedly not among the options. What a bigger jail will do is add more trauma to the trauma-fueled problems you believe are out of scope. It may not be your hand doing the restraining, but a recommendation to fund an expansion would directly enable an increase in preventable deaths. My question for each of you is, are you okay with that?
Does that conclude your remarks? I guess that concludes your remarks.
Next, we have Tiara Rainey.
Kara?
May I begin? I have
Yes.
3 minutes, correct?
Yes, 3 minutes.
I am just a concerned community member. My name is Tiara Rainey. I'm the executive director of the Tucson Bail Fund, and I am really deeply disturbed, unfortunately, by the nature of the conversation that's been happening around the jail expansion. And I really just want to uplift this idea that there has been supposedly, quote, no money or no resources have been allocated to renovating the jail, when in fact the sheriff's department, allegedly was using the funds for video. For those of you who aren't familiar, there is no in-person visits at Pima County Jail. It has been like that for many years. Pre-COVID, it was like that. These calls are incredibly expensive, and part of the incentive for the jail creating that system was specifically so that they can, quote, use that money that is solely coming from the families of the incarcerated for capital improvements on the facility. That's literally what the sheriff's department said 4 years ago in the Daily Star. These are some of the things we were being told were being invested into. And so I think the part that is upsetting in terms of how this commission has been created is, once again, I keep bringing up this notion of accountability. There has been no discussion of how we got here, what specific oversights have been missing in terms of how the sheriff's department has been managing the current funds that they've intentionally, honestly defunded the jail. They've allowed it to get to this point of, quote, crisis, and they're being rewarded with potentially a $400 million new facility. I also really just want to use this time to push back on this notion that you can bring services to the jail. The jail is not a service provider, which is demonstrated by the large amount of folks who are dying in that facility. It's not because of the mold or the water or any of the other things that have been mentioned on this call regarding the, quote, dire straits of the facility. It's because of a culture of dehumanization and neglect. And I think that's only further buoyed by the fact that the idea that the deaths are a separate thing. Carcerality creates this black and white notion of who is worthy of redemption, who are people worthy to be thrown away. And I really want to push back on this idea that it's like out of the scope, out of the scope. That once again is saying as though these people and their deaths don't matter, that's something that can be put on the back burner. Like, these are directly impacted families. These are people who've lost their loved ones in really traumatic ways. And to simply say it's out of the scope, I really encourage y'all to do better. I really encourage y'all to stop marginalizing these voices as though we are just a bunch of crazy leftists that don't have any grounding in our analysis, as though we haven't been organizing for years. I really appreciate you taking the time. I understand that this is really just going to keep moving forward in terms of a process, but I just wanted to make sure that my voice was on the record saying that this is not a solution in any way, shape, or form. Thank you.
Thank you. And I believe that concludes our speakers. Am I correct?
Is there anyone else, Nico, that was able to sign in that was on the list that registered?
I don't see anybody else that signed on.
Well, those that spoke, thank you very much. I think that it's obviously we weren't able to take comments on August 10th, but there's been 23 public comments made to the website. And we have a kind of a summary of those. I thought I would read those into the record here, and just so we can have that and people can hear what those are. And then maybe what we can do after this, after we have that, is if commissioners have any reaction to the input or something that we can, feel free to speak or not. That's certainly your call, what you want to do. But the
Mr. Chair, I am so sorry to interrupt, but I do see that one of the people that had registered to speak, I think she signed in. Nico, is Karina Echerivel ready? I see her hand up.
Requested an unmute.
Karina?
Corina?
Okay.
Is she not there, Nico, then?
I see them connected. I don't have the ability to manually unmute them. I've sent the request, so.
Oh, okay. Okay, so they signed in through a different way and they're not able to get in. Okay, all right. So, Mr. Chair, I apologize.
Well, no apology necessary, but if we could direct or let them know that they can, there are other ways for them to sign in, through the the website or the public comment through the county, that we certainly encourage that. Okay, so anyway, the mix of the comments that we have and just kind of the excerpts that we received since the 23 public comments since August 10th. No new jail. Stop funding the jail. Divest the jail and use the $400 million instead to fund services for the community. COVID numbers show that the law enforcement courts and agencies can choose not to incarcerate people. Why not go back to that and reduce jail population? Use funding for drug treatment, mental health issues, housing, and employment support instead of incarceration. Majority of crime in Tucson is non-serious and non-violent. Incarceration is not the answer. No expansion of jail. Deal with the mental health issues outside of the jail environment. Do not use the result of failed management to justify the exorbitant cost to taxpayers for a new jail. Look at doing upgrades to existing jail instead of new jail. Figure out how to do it without raising taxes. More urgent needs in our community than a new jail. Need for social services for students to avoid conflict with law enforcement and school. Money needs to be put in programs for in early formative years. A sales tax to fund the jail should have been done a long time ago to help pay for the jail and its services. Not realistic to say no jails or stop funding jails. People also need to take responsibility for their actions.
Hello?
Fix, yes?
Yes, I am muted.
Okay, could
This
you
is
just
Karina.
Karina, and I
Karina?
believe this is
I
Karina,
tried
and I
again.
believe I also have a Greg Cooper on the line. I mean,
Okay. So did you want to continue, Mr. Chair, and then we can move on to the speaker, just so you can wrap it up?
Yes.
Okay.
Fix the jail we have before investing in a new one. Need to instead invest these funds in local education and parenting initiatives. The jail needs to relook at mission. Jail should be constructed and operated to maximize ability to provide services to detainees to address behavioral health, mental health, and social service needs. Number of deaths very concerning. Cannot support a new jail unless agreement that establishes what policies should be enacted to ensure health and safety of those incarcerated. The sheriff told the board of extreme staffing, shortage of staff and corrections officers. How can a bigger jail be staffed? Sounds like facility issues, more of a management issue. We can pay now or have to pay much later, build a new jail. So those are the comments. And so with that, then we'll move on. We have 2 additional speakers.
Corina?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Go ahead.
Hi. So the Sheriff's Department exploited a loophole in state and federal reporting requirements to underreport the number of jail-related deaths under Chef Nono's watch. Initially, the department reported 12 jail-related deaths in 2022, 2 in 2023. Recent reporting in conjunction with the medical examiner oversight revealed that, in fact, there were 24 in Pima County jail-related deaths in 2022 and 8 in 2023. This department, to the breaking point, stretched the law or regulation to the breaking point, to hide their own negligence and incompetence. When we hear that the new jail will potentially be a new building and potentially new programming, new services handed over to the same sheriff, how are we to understand that his incompetence will not just be covered up? Are you concerned by the rate of the deaths in the Pima County Jail under Chef Nono's watch? And what is your understanding of the factors driving these deaths, as well as the statistical causes of death in the facility? Also, the county has received huge amounts of funding and resources from the MacArthur Foundation to put in place programs to reduce jail population. How does the commission's population projection, which justifies the establishment of a jail of 3,000 beds, interact with this population reduction effort funded by the MacArthur Foundation? Has the commission been in touch with the jail, with the MacArthur or any of its oversight actors? This jail proposal and this reduction effort seems to be in direct conflict. While some efforts due to reduce population define success in shorter jail stays, more immediate removal from jail, etc., we know that it is actually the first 24 to 48 hours spent in jail that are the most dangerous according to national statistics. This fact suggests that any interaction with the carceral system increases an individual's risk beyond what is acceptable, especially in a jail like ours. To your understanding, is the Safety and Justice Commission undertaking any efforts to reduce jail population by not sending people to jail?
Does that conclude your remarks?
Also, Danny Lee Redman, Edward Helms Alvarez, Adam Godoy, Pedro Javier Martinez, Jesus Aguilar Figueroa, Sylvester Miguel, Todd Ash, David Maxwell, Joseph Zarate, Gregory Noriega, Brandon Jeffrey Roth, Alejandro Alex Romo, Justin Crook, Jax Dixon, Daniel Salazar, Ricardo Duran, Jennifer Valenzuela, Jonathan Leary, Walden Ellis, Joel Loa, Wade William Welch, Cruz Jr. Patino, Evan Pitzler, Richard D. Pena, Hector Medano, Todd Allen Murray, Zachariah Farrington, Terrence Salazar, Benjamin Wilhite, Sandra Judson, Jacob Miranda, Adam Godoy, Ricardo Pascal, Derek Russell, Francisco Ruiz, Brandon Binden, William Amegar, Eric Cruz, Paul Anthony Castellino, Robert Ewan Mohammed, Adit Tutu, Jose Flores, Caleb Kinowski, Jennifer Valenzuela, Joel Loya, Joseph Zarate, Pedro. Okay, those are all the names of the deceased.
Okay, thank you. And you have one other speaker, Nico?
I think this might be Greg Cooper. I've requested an unmute.
Hi, this is
Greg?
Greg.
Okay, please speak.
Thank you, Karina, and everyone for speaking of the lives lost at the jail. These are not just numbers, they are lives. These are our community members. They have names, and they deserve the space to be named in this space. They deserve to be named in this space. And since the county has still not taken accountability for these lives, apparently they need to hear it again and again and again. And muting their names is an act of violence. William Omegar, Jacob Miranda, Sandra Judson, Zachariah Farrington, Cruz Jr. Patino III, Weldon Ellis, Jack Dixon, Justin Crook, Bradley Alex Lewis, Norberto Medican Beltran, Jesus Aguilar Figueroa, Robert Salabunes, Amin Shahid Muhammad Ali, Hugh Buford, Benjamin Wilhite, Terrence Salazar, Wade William Welch, Jonathan James Leary, Alex Romo, Sylvester Miguel Inzunza, Pedro Javier Martinez Palacios, Joseph Zarate, Joel Loya, Jennifer Valenzuela, Caleb Kinowski, Jose Flores, Yunan Mohammed Atib Tutu. These are only a fraction of the names. Many of the names have not been released. Many of the names, we have heard of an inmate knowing of a death this week. This name has not been released. This death has not been released. The way that the sheriff is sending people to the hospital, and these deaths are not being accounted for. These deaths are being hidden from our community, and yet there is more money for the sheriff. It's an outrage. And what is being done about this? How is this being taken into account? How are we preventing more lives lost? How are we not going to add more names to this list?
Does that conclude your remarks?
That's all for now.
Thank you very much. And I think that's all of our speakers, correct, Diana, Nico?
I see one more speaker with a hand up, Nico. Is that a new one that signed in?
I don't have them on my list. Do you?
No, actually, I don't see that name. Can you reach them, or did they sign in a different way?
Requesting an unmute.
I think the last name is Diamond.
Yeah, thank you for unmuting me. I emailed just this morning, so I appreciate the time and flexibility on that end. I'll be brief. I do understand that you all in the Blue Ribbon Commission are only focused at this point on the physical building. So, while I recognize that the conversation is much bigger, I am just going to choose to speak to this today. So, to my understanding, the current facility is said to be crumbling at only about 40 years old. That to me is a pretty baffling figure, especially considering that there are many buildings of all kinds in Tucson that are more or less thriving despite being much older. I've lived in several buildings that are older than the jail, and that's, not a I don't know, 40 years is not ancient for a building, I guess is what I'm saying. I feel as if this proposal to renovate or replace a building that is crumbling at 40 years, I feel like that's a clear case of mismanagement. What I want to know is from you all is how this commission can justify moving forward with a plan that would essentially hand over a $400 million check to the same sheriff's department that has proven time and time again through a culture of severe negligence, not only of the facility, but also of the lives that have been taken from our community. The Pima County Sheriff's Department have demonstrated that they're not capable of handling their budget, their building, or the lives in their care in a responsible way. And just to reiterate, how are we to expect that they will not waste this money and continue to wreak havoc on our community by neglecting both the facility and the lives they're already responsible for? Many of my friends and people I don't know have named people who have died in the jail, and that is appalling that there are so many people. I think it's the recorded number is about 80 folks, and I know that there are people who have not been named. What's to prevent this from continuing and from being not only a severe trauma to our community, but also a total waste of taxpayer money? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, does that conclude our speakers?
I believe so, Mr. Chair. I don't see anybody else.
Okay. Well, as I stated, I wanted to have those other comments, and I know that the commission all got those. Actually, it has not got those yet, so I wanted to have that. But does any commissioner have any thoughts or comments as we move forward?
Wendy, I see your hand up.
You're muted, Wendy.
Am I now?
You're good.
Okay. I had a couple of comments, maybe reactions and questions. One of the questions I have is about the information that this commission has gathered over the past several months, and wondered, and I frankly don't remember, how much of that is public facing or available to the public to see. Because I think there are some comments or questions from the community about not knowing what needed to be done, or what the various problems were. So can somebody tell me that?
Diana, you want to address that? Because I believe everything has been posted.
That's what I thought. That's what I thought.
Diana
That's
can confirm.
Yes, so everything that had been presented, beginning from the numbers and things that the sheriff had provided from the request from the commission, on to all the presentations that were done in June, and then the subsequent information that was garnered at the July meeting, including Commissioner Wilson's information where he recapped all of that. So yes, that is on the webpage, including the meeting summaries that cover every discussion point and comment. Yes.
Well, I think my only follow-up to that is to really encourage the folks who came last time, to look at those documents. I mean, they're kind of dense in terms of so much information, but I think it would be helpful to everyone in our community to take a look at that and maybe provide some maybe written comment or written reaction to that. But I wanted to make sure that that information that we have as a commission is also available to the public, which it seems that it is.
It is, yeah.
Okay. The second thing that I wanted to address is, of course, the jail deaths, which is really awful. And obviously we know that it happens, et cetera. What I was wondering is, I know we got some comment from the the jail and civilian advisory committee that at the sheriff's department, and wondered if this is something, I don't know that anybody on our panel or in our listening audience is a member of that commission, but I'm wondering if that is something that should be brought before that commission, as opposed to the new jail building, a new jail building or a refurbished jail building. So those are two comments that I have.
Thank you, Wendy. Anyone else have any comments or anything they just want to put on the record? Again, there's, as I stated when we opened up, and I think that the county administrator recognizes there are greater issues, there are other issues, and I think your point is well taken, Wendy. And but that's for people to criticize us for basically doing what it is we were asked to do is a little disingenuous, and saying that we're not doing what it is that needs to be done is again, I think when we're talking about beyond our scope, we're not saying that it doesn't matter. We're just saying that it's beyond our scope. Pastor?
Is it possible to get a copy of the transcript or a copy of the recording? I think that would be very helpful in future meetings.
Of what? The public comments?
Of this meeting today, I apologize. Of this meeting today, to include the public comments.
It is recorded. I'm a little reluctant to provide what the character generation there is, because I noticed a lot of things that aren't there. I think for people to really get a full sense of it, I think you'd really have to listen to it and not read the transcripts of the character generation.
Okay, great, thanks.
It is recorded and will be available for the public. Anything else? Our next agenda item is the discussion on facility options and questions for the public comments in a survey. And again, we'll talk, do we really want to do a survey? I think Mr. Evans talked about the powerful survey tool, but I think we have to be in a position to talk about the options. And I think, David, you may want to kind of chime in, or Paul, you had some options, what feasibility, not feasible, those types of things. Again, I think if we're going to do a survey, we need to at least have some options for people to be able to weigh in on, and just wonder, what your thoughts are as far as what the facility options are. Paul, David,
Yeah, Mr. Chair. As we mentioned earlier in the meeting, I think that before we reach out to ask for more specific comments about any recommendations we might make, we need to encapsulate those in some kind of a draft report or what have you, that can be posted on the website, and then ask the public for specific comments, on what our thoughts going forward are. We've had a discussion of a number of different options or alternatives, but we haven't yet really boiled those down into any specific recommendations. And I think we need to have those conversations so that we can get a draft report prepared and then ask for feedback related to that.
I absolutely agree. Does any other commissioner have any other thoughts or concerns, or as we kind of started with the meeting, and then I think just was reiterated by Commissioner Wilson, do we, is that kind of our next step?
Jack has his hand up.
Okay, Jack.
My concern with regard to that is that we still don't have the report from the independent assessment of the facility. And I'm not sure how valid recommendations that we make would be in the absence of knowing what the report's going to be from the professionals hired by the county.
Do we have a status on that, Diana?
Yes, so that will be scheduled to go to the board, possibly in September, is when we'll probably be able to do that, which is not overlapping with as much time with the commission. However, it does not necessarily preclude the commission from going through what you all observed through your tours, through the conversations, through the data, through what you've seen, and input, right, and public input, to at least come up with recommendations of what you've seen as already things. I know from the last meeting you guys were discussing the unit, and in the medical observation unit, and some of the comments also that we have heard from Kate Vesley's group and what her team does. And so I think that there's information that could come out of the commission, including a recommendation for whatever comes from that third party, where they'll really look at the facility itself. I think what you guys have observed, I think will be helpful for them to look at and include in what you see as gaps or deficiencies that need to be addressed in the facility.
And I think to add to that, Diana and Paul and David and Jack, if you want to jump in on this, but I think that the feasibility piece of it, I think can be brought out for conversation. I mean, it's one of those, if we're going to refurbish, where do we put the inmates? Do we invest in standing up another facility that can possibly work? And then we're investing significant dollars in putting something together that's going to basically just be a transitory type thing. And, is that what the public really would want to do, given the costs? And I think some of the things is sometimes refurbishing or rehabilitating, and I like that word that the facilities group has come up with, is, could be more expensive than building new. And so I think when we put those out, what the options are and the feasibility based on the report that was done by facilities at the last meeting or meeting before last, I think would be, I think we could get comment. Thoughts on that?
And Commissioner O'Brien, in response to that as well, From the third party that we're looking at potentially to onboard for this purpose, we could ask also a question to them based on whatever initial scenarios this group entertains, that we could at least get some initial information of what are we really looking at in terms of possible cost ranges. Obviously, it won't be set in stone, but possible cost ranges and such that could relate to what you all are looking at.
That would be helpful. You know, it's unfortunate that we don't have the amount of overlap that we had hoped. But I am sensitive to the fact that we're on a time schedule, and so we may just have to deal with what we have. And then and I think Commissioner O'Brien, I think to your point, if it's something that's different or significantly different from the other group, then I think there would probably be willingness on the part of this commission to come back together to reconcile what those differences are. But that would be up to the county administrator. Anyone else?
I would say or add to Diana's comment that it's important to put some kind of cost range, numbers to what we're thinking, particularly as that's going to relate to any thoughts we're going to recommend about financing options and so on. We kind of need to know what the potential expenses are and then what options are available to satisfy those.
Yes. Good comments. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, well, I think then we can talk either as part of this one and the future agenda items as far as the survey. I know our time is going to be somewhat limited. I understood Mark's counsel about the fact that as you limit the time, that might have some things, but I think it might be beneficial or at least instructive for staff, maybe for the third-party consultant, and for the county administrator and board to see what the results of the survey would be. But I don't want to abandon that idea, but I kind of like to keep that on the table. I just want to know what the thoughts of the commission are.
Well, I think the timetable is going to be driven partly, at least, by how quickly we can get some kind of a draft report put together and reviewed and accepted by the commission.
Right. No, I agree. Chief Villasenor?
Thank you. A couple of comments just rang with me that I think we're going to have to address at some point. And I've missed a couple meetings, so if this has already been addressed, please forgive me. The topic about, 40 years, is that too short of a time for the building to be in the condition it's in now, and how did it get there? I think that people need to realize that jails are different. It's not a house where you're sitting there and you're 40 years and you're trying to take care of it. You're inhabited by maybe people who wouldn't want to care about the facility. So is there some type of study out there that shows what is the average lifespan of a jail of the size of Pima County? And is that something that we could put up saying, for a jail facility, a lifespan of 30 or 40 years is probably about the normal? And maybe you've discussed that previously. Again, I apologize if that has taken place, but I think that's a question that we do need to answer because it's a legitimate question.
No, I think that's a good point. And again, it's operating 24/7 and it's a different use. And I think that just that some of the things that some of the structural things and just some of the design issues, I think that were like with the plumbing chases and things like that, those look like pretty extensive renovations or rehabilitation to do. And, you use plumbing, I think, for 40 years. And I think that'd be something I maybe refer to David on, but I would say that's going to happen. You're going to have to start.
Yeah, if you're putting sheets down your plumbing and, all the things that we saw pictures of, what was being stuffed down the plumbing, it's it's not a normal building usage or facility. And I think it needs to be brought out, because if not, then that could be a misinformation campaign that goes on saying, if you're not taking care of this, I mean, 40 years is not too long for a building to live. In a normal building, they may be right. But I think that we do need to talk about that.
Yeah. Good point. David?
Commissioner, we can look for that type of information, because I do know as we were looking when this process first started, we were looking at examples across the country as to what's been happening, and it's almost at the 40-year mark where these discussions start to come up again because of either it's due to capacity or the building itself, or they're finding that they don't have a particular room anymore for services that they now need to be providing, and so they're kind of seeing it that's kind of in what they call their end of life cycle for certain functions in these facilities. So, but we can definitely try and see if there are studies that show that information that we can then make available to the public.
Thank you, Diana. David?
Yeah, agreed. And to your point, Mr. Vicenia, is yeah, the 40 years for a facility with this type of use is approaching its life cycle. Yeah, you can band-aid it, but as the commissioner, said, that can a lot of times be more expensive. And for, my taxpayer dollar, I would rather see that go to a facility that is designed better for the safety of the inmates, for the safety of the correctional officers. The design from 40 years ago is different from a philosophical standpoint of how to best run a facility for the safety of all involved. And I think that solves the community inputs that we've been hearing, or at least addresses that. And so I think we can come up with the rough order of magnitude dollars to put to the scenarios that we've outlined so far. And then again, that can be validated by the group that's going to be hired here this month by the board. So I think in this draft report, we can have rough order of magnitude costs. Obviously, these are not costs to be relied on because it's just based on bubble diagrams and square footages and our best information as a commission, not as a hired expert to go in there and evaluate these facilities.
Good points. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, well, I think we've got some work ahead of us as far as putting together a draft, getting that. I think I'll work with Diana and staff, and we'll see about getting something put together. And then I think probably the best way to do that will be through email, just for people to review and comment, and then eventually bring it back in front of the entire group for a thumbs up, thumbs down before we go for public comment on it. Anyway, any future agenda items? I think we got a lot of work for that right now. I think the future agenda item is going to be probably the review of the draft report and acceptance, and then direction to staff on as far as taking public comment on that. And I think that's going to be our focus now as we come into our final leg here. Anything else?
Yeah, I think the cost and financing has to be part of that as well.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I think that way, if we can do the as David put it, the rough order of magnitude, I think that also will help to inform the finance group as far as recommendations, and then we'll look at that. But I think it's going to be important to have public comment on the financing as well. So it has to be in there. Anything else? Well, I thank you all for your attendance at this meeting and attention, and again, all the hard work that's been done over the past several months. And as we're kind of looking at the finish line here, we still have a lot of work ahead of us, and all. But I appreciate people carving out the time out of your busy schedules to be able to do this meeting, so we could make up for the one we lost. So again, If there's nothing else, I will adjourn this meeting and thank you all, and we'll look forward to our next meeting, which is September 21st, Diana?
Yes, that's what we had scheduled. I wasn't sure if the committee, and maybe it is worth keeping, it's an interim, because if we go ahead and put a draft together for review for the commission and input, we would then officially kick off a possible survey period of time where, as you heard from Mr. Evans, that 3 to 4 weeks would allow for time for that, and it would go through all of the notifications, right, social alerts and press release, so that the community is aware of that survey and to provide that. If you wanted to keep the September 21st date, we could. If the comment period is still ongoing, which you all can determine how long you want that to be, we could meeting and then quickly schedule another one to synthesize what came in and publicize what the results are of all of those comments to then inform what will go into your final report.
Yeah, and as I mentioned, I think we'll do things with emails and things, but we may end up calling a special meeting prior to that to do that. But our next schedule, yeah, definitely. I think if we need to get together in advance of that, I think that we can certainly try and find a time we can all do this.
And Danny, could I suggest also that maybe through email or what have you too? I think the September 21st meeting is the last meeting that we have scheduled. And I don't know what the group is thinking, but I'm thinking that we're probably going to have more than just that one meeting. And maybe we could start trying to plan some of those out and get them on people's calendars and try to avoid conflicts.
Okay.
Yes, I was going to suggest that maybe when we go back and we kind of start to almost work backwards, where we kind of figure out when that the initial findings report for the public to have something to react to and respond to, when we can estimate when that can be put out, then we can go ahead and build in the weeks of public comment and start trying to find dates for you all to be meeting. And I will let the administrator know that we are going to be having to push back a little bit on the dates and probably get another 1 or 2 even in October, possibly November.
And let us know what she says. Yeah, again, we've tried to make that commitment, but this is, there's a lot of stuff to this, and we want to make sure we get it as right as we can. Anything else? All right. Well, we will stand adjourned. Thank you all, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you all.
Thank you.